I had a pill that you could take that it would cause you to achieve your state of satisfaction for 1,000 years, but all other people would die, would you take the pill?
No, because when I'm asked to make that choice, I would not be satisfied becoming that sort of person who would do that. So it could never be my greatest desire to do that. I would always have the desire, a greater desire, to be a different sort of person. So I would never even get into that state. And so that's the principal issue there. Especially if you get to the more complicated, you have to like, are you going to erase your memories of having done this awful thing and still be satisfied? I mean, if you're going to do that, or even if you don't erase memories, if the pill makes you satisfied with being evil, then the pill isn't just creating a satisfaction state, it's fundamentally changing you as a person. It's changing you to a different person. So it's like changing you to a kind of person you wouldn't even want to be. So the question is, like, do you want to turn yourself into an evil person and then reward that person? When you're faced with that choice, the answer is no. So that's how my moral theory resolves that issue. But I'm curious how he resolves it too.
Could you rephrase the question?
Or
repeat it? Or
just restate it.
Yeah. If I had a pill that you could take that would cause you to achieve your state of satisfaction for 1,000 years, but all the other people would die, would you take that pill?
No, because I care more about the other people than I do about being happy. And even if I would have to endure a little extra misery, you know, everyday life has its ups and downs. I'd rather endure everyday life if I could, you know, save those 1,000 people.
Yeah, and that's the idea. I mean, it satisfies him more to be that sort of person and live that particular life rather than the other. And that's how my theory. That's how I argue that his theory reduces to mine.
But what if someone could prove that you would be more satisfied in that 1,000 years with this pill than that particular satisfaction that you derive from?
I do it.
Why?
Did somebody want to?
I mean, it's directly refutable. I mean, it's you gotta remember, you're asking me right now to make this choice, so I can directly, empirically verify what my response would be. So it's not even a question of how happy I would be in the future. The question is, can I even make that choice? I'm not even physically capable of doing it, because I would know objectively that would be the sort of person I'll never want to become, and it would never satisfy me to make that choice. And so when you're talking about the choice I have to make, it's completely irrelevant what the future state is when you're sitting in that situation where I'm seeing that that's a choice I could never make. You see what I'm talking about?
I disagree.
Thank you. There are definitely some people out there, and I think someone actually even volunteered saying that they would take that pill knowing all of the facts. They would be willing to take that pill to fulfill that desire. Would that make that a moral act?
Not as a matter of moral truth. They might want to call it a moral act, but it wouldn't be, because moral truth follows from the actual facts, and the actual facts would be that person would have basically destroyed themselves.
I somewhat agree with you in that I think it is possible for there to be someone for whom something like that would fulfill more of their desires. And I think it's possible that there are people who would make that decision. And so I don't think you can rule that out and just say it's necessarily true that, you know, it would make people better off, that it would make people worse off if they chose that.
What about all the dead people?
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly.
Their desires are gone. So
right. Yeah, that's you're right. Yeah, that's Buddhist mega fundamentalism. Yeah. No, these are the things you have to confront. It's like how could you become the sort of person who really didn't give a shit about those other people? I mean, that's the issue there. And the thing is, in making the decision, you were turning yourself into that sort of person, and that person might be fantastically happy. But the question is, do you even want to create that person? Do you want to unleash that person onto the world? And worst of all, do you want it to be you? That's the ultimate question. And so that's why I could never make that choice. It would never happen that I would make that choice. But that's because I rationally analyzed it. And I think there are people who say they would make the choice. They haven't thought about it. That's my opinion. And I give a different example where I talk about someone. If you could have a permanent orgasm for 1,000 years, like the best orgasm ever, but be intellectually unsatisfied, or you can never have an orgasm for 1,000 years and be intellectually satisfied the whole time. Now, anyone who picks the orgasm doesn't know what they're talking about.
Really want an orgasm.
Doesn't that get into like
But you would be intellectually satisfied.
the qualitative like satisfaction that would have to get into a lot more detail and know exactly why that satisfaction in your brain, like the computation of that is better. Like if the board come up and say, hey, we got the best high satisfaction ever, and you don't know what you're talking about, then they have to prove that somehow, and that gets into detail that obviously we can't work with right now.